You're watching News Central now. I am Dekon Obanjo. The top stories at this hour. Bandits raid Katsina community, kill 24 persons. U.S. blames Rwanda M23 rebels for DR Congo camp bombing. Tunisians demand eviction of migrant encampment. Details to come your way shortly. Let's begin by telling you that at least 24 persons are said to have been killed and several others wounded in a fresh bandit attack on Unguwar Sarkin Noma Community in Sabuwa local government area of Katsina State. Those killed were mostly vigilante members who reportedly came out to confront the bandits. Local security officials said that during the attack, which lasted for about an hour, 4 villages were raided by the hoodlums in what was described as reprisals over military offensives on the bandits' hideouts. It was also explained that the hoodlums stormed the villages of Unguwar Sarkin Noma, Gangara, Tafi, and Kore on Thursday night at about 9 p.m., shooting sporadically to scare the residents. And now to discuss this, I am joined by a security analyst, Salahuddin Hashim. Thank you so much, Salahuddin, for joining us on the news. It's nice to have you around. Can you please unmute your device?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, fantastic. We can hear you now. Now, this attack lasted for almost an hour and 4 villages were raided. It is almost like the same script playing all over again where attackers ransack villages without a swift response from security personnel. What do you think the major obstacles are?
Okay, I think first of all is to again show some level of worry regarding the level of unhindered attacks that we witness in the hinterlands where these bandits raiding, and then of course takes a little while for security response to come, which has hitherto become one of the biggest albatross in the quest to save and protect lives and property. But again, there are matters arising from this incident, particularly maybe again, some of the comments coming from the governor has also given us some of the concerns and additional areas to further interrogate, which is bordering around the industrialization of the activities of banditry, and then again telling us the need for us to begin to engage very clearly the functionality and the effectiveness of most of our security institutions, how internally a number of them have compromised, and how some of these compromises have also continued to threaten the lives of citizens. But most importantly is to put out there to say, look, there are black markets where a number of AMOs where most of the security agencies are aware of, and then of course providing some sort of logistics, perhaps from the behind the scene, considering what the governor mentioned, how that governments and security agents have become part of the technical guides that are offering these guys an ability to be able to carry out their onslaught. So again, it is very important for security agencies to put their searchlights on some of those black markets where ammos and the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, which is actually amounting to about 10 million in West Africa, particularly Nigeria. 80% of that figure is in Nigeria, and 70% of that number is in the hands of non-state actors. And that, of course, is an issue that calls for serious concern. So basically, I think it is very important that we find a way to work constructively with the immigration to find a way to curtail the inflows of foreign fighters. What we see happening in the northern region is actually an activity that is going on in the Sahel, and the pressure from the Sahel from Mauritania to Central African Republic is actually dwelling very strongly up north, and I think it is very important we pay some attention to it. And why responses is not sufficient and responsive enough borders largely around the institutional gap and institutional weaknesses that we are currently experiencing. But most importantly, I think the functionality is something that requires that we pay some attention to allow for some level of logistic support. And one of the things that you may want to interest you, if you pick the budget of the Nigerian police, for instance, if you do the analysis of that particular budget, it tells you that a particular station gets about 1 liter per day. That in itself is actually very worrisome in terms of response.
Yes, Salaudin, it's very, very worrisome, and it's even more worrisome when we have people in places of authority who come out with categorical statements saying that there are people within the ambit of power of governance who are actually carrying out or perpetrating this act, or funders or sponsors of these sort of atrocious acts. But then when we have this sort of revelation coming from authorities like this, it would mean or suggest that they have information as regards who these people are. Don't you think at this time they should be able to identify them, ping them out, bring them out, have them arrested, and deal with this situation? Because if a governor comes out to say that, oh, there are government officials and security agencies within the scope that enable these killings and this banditry and these attacks, it means they have credible information. So why is it hard for them to single these people out, identify them, and nip it in the bud?
The absence of political will. I will give you two quick instances. One is the fact that in Zamfara, there was a white paper report that actually indicted over 200 traditional leaders who got themselves involved in this entire process. But again, the question is, what has happened to that white paper? What were the consequences? That is one. Two, the Chief of Defense Staff at one time, when he was actually present with the National Assembly, made categorical revelations where he told them very clearly that officials from the custodial facilities were helping people who were in detention to actually carry out some coordinated attacks by helping them with communication infrastructure. That comment came very clearly from the Chief of Defense Staff. And again, after that, nobody actually ever followed up to find out what exactly happened, how is this happening, and of course, what are the queries that were transmitted, and how are those queries being transformed into some certain action plan. That didn't happen. So there are functional political gaps that are not allowing for effectiveness. And secondly is that there are also some level of compromise in the integrity of the entire security architecture. And that in itself is actually putting a number of question marks around how the entire system in itself is actually playing out in terms of responsive enough to some of these situations that we see. And again, because again, it is an industrial scale that we are currently witnessing, the large cache of cash, and then of course the level at which these guys organize and coordinate tells you very clearly that they have a very clear knowledge of the functional approaches that our security agencies work.
All right, now, so at this point, it's just sad that this is the situation that we find ourselves. We just discovered that it is the people and these local communities that try as much as possible to have a security team to police their area that feel the brunt and get killed. Now, we see vigilante members who are the bulk of those killed in this particular attack by bandits, as much as, of course, it's been speculated that these criminal elements wield superior firepower. So what do you think can be done to beef up security within these local communities and make it more formidable, whether or not there's going to be a prompt response from security agencies to help them quell or deal with these criminal elements?
Yeah, I mean, most importantly is that we must actually improve community policing infrastructure. That for me is very functional. And the first thing that we must do. Two is that we must also develop a robust early warning and early response platforms where people can domicile information, perhaps when they notice or come against information that they find very strange or alien to the community where they reside. And most importantly is that we must develop technology in terms of how we use it to be able to engage constructively in most of these areas. I mean, what 100 men cannot do, technology can do it for you very easy. So we need to introduce heavy technology, one in surveillance, two in terms of how we use them to patrol, and three, how we use them to also engage very constructively. I mean, developed clients have actually tested some of these things, and it is working very clearly. But most importantly, to start with, we need human intelligence. Intelligence is one of the most fundamental instruments that helps you to be able to fight crime at local level. And that in itself is something we must develop. And for you to do that, you must develop trust with the people. The people must be able to trust you, because one of the gaps is that, look, with this concern that there are also moles within the system. So who knows, if you go to report any incident and you turn up dead the following day, people might just find it as coincidence.
Definitely,
that somebody in the system has actually turned you out.
Yes.
So that in itself is actually a worry that we need to put on the table.
Yes, most definitely. These are the concerning areas that will need to be looked at. Salahuddin Hashim, security analyst, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're still talking insecurity. Bandits were reported to have killed 3 villagers who were working on their farms in the Odaolu community of Agatu local government area of Benue State. According to a source, the victims were working at their separate farms on Friday afternoon when the bandits attacked them. Confirming the attack, the chairman of Agatu local government area, Yakubu Ochepo, said the attackers came through neighboring Apa local government area and hacked the victims to death. Now, Otoko and Apagatu local government areas were among the worst hit by bandit attacks in recent times. Disturbed by the incessant attacks and killings in this domain, the paramount ruler of the Doma nation, His Royal Majesty the Ochidoma Dr. John Eliagu Dodo, condemned the recent spate of attacks within Agatu and its environs. We now tell you more as regards some security and insecurity situations in the country. But then, of course, we will bring you details of that in our subsequent stories. Let's quickly talk about this, which is a pressing issue. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has unbundled the Transmission Company of Nigeria by establishing the Nigerian Independent System Operator of Nigeria Limited. NERC made this known in an order dated April 30, 2023, and signed by the chairman, Sanusi Garba, and vice chairman, Musiliu Oseni. NERC also ordered the Bureau of Public Enterprises to within 30 days register the Independent System Operator as a distinct entity from the Transmission Company of Nigeria with the Corporate Affairs Commission. The Nigerian Independent System Operator Limited will be responsible for managing the national grid and other system operations, related market contracts and transactions. And now to discuss this, I'm joined by the former chairman, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Ikeja Branch, Akintayo Akintola. Thank you so much, Mr. Akintayo, for joining us on the news. Hello, Mr. Akintayo, can you hear me?
Good evening, sir. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I can hear you. Good evening, Jimmy.
Okay, beautiful. It's nice to have you around. Thank you so much for joining us. So quickly, what do you think about the unbundling of the TCN by the NERC? Do you think it will make any difference in the sector?
Yeah, thank you. And it's a good one that you are talking about the reform. From my own view, I believe we are rushing into making another mistake. And this may not lead us to any other place. These are things that they're supposed to do internally before even pronouncing that they are doing unbundling. Because all that they've said now, nobody understands what they are saying. They've not said anything. To me, it has not make any meaning.
Well, it's quite interesting that you say that it seems the Nigerian government is rushing and there are some internal mechanisms that should come into play first before we have a public announcement of this. And some people have also come out to say that it goes beyond, having a NISO come on board. And they said that the Nigerian government should be looking at other areas. So if we are hoping to optimize this particular sector in terms of transmission, optimizing the operation system and all that, what do you think the critical steps or the initial steps by government should have been?
Yeah, thank you. I think the first thing we need to do, there is need for an holistic study of what is the real problem we have. Is it the GEMCOs? Is it the transmission or the distribution? Many of us initially, I believe it was the discos. Okay, discos have problems. Have we really pointed out their problems? Our transmission has problems, which all of us know they have their own limitation. And the limitation is that they cannot transmit beyond a certain threshold. Any lead to collapse. These are the things we need to be talking about. About the GEMCOs too. They have their own problem. They talk about the gas, most times, no gas, no this, all the rest. So it's not only the transmission, each and every part of.
Hello, Mr. Akintayo.
The electricity, do their proper analysis then before. Yeah. Hello?
Yes, we just lost connection with you for a while, but I'd like you to just continue and conclude. Hello, Mr. Akintayo. Well, I think the network has not been friendly from its end. Maybe we'll be able to bring him back, and it would be nice if we can do that before we expire this duration of the news. But then we continue with the stories, and we tell you that Nigeria's Minister of Police Affairs has tasked members of the National Youth Service Corps to ensure they fulfill their obligations to the nation and support efforts aimed at combating insecurity. The minister gave the charge in the nation's capital, Abuja, during the launch and presentation of a book on the role of corps members in tackling insecurity and improving policing in the country, written by some members of the corps serving in the ministry. It says that the NYC program should be a catalyst for national development, urging corps members to embrace the challenges that come with their service to the nation.
As youth, you are to champion the crusade against the social biases, such as yoho, waywardness, and unruly behaviors that have bedeviled this country. Biases such as electoral malpractices and political violence. You owe it to yourself and to the nation not allowing yourselves to be recruited by agents of distribution to truncate our nascent democracy. It is therefore imperative that you make every effort to assist government to achieve the scheme's laudable.
Away from that, the Deputy Speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, on Saturday activated his peace project in the southeast with a road walk around some of the major roads in Umuahia, the Abia State capital. It was accompanied by a member representing Isiala Unguwar Federal Constituency, Ginger Omunsibe, and former Minister of Labour, Emeka Mogo, including sons and daughters of the state. It says it aims to use this as a relatable means to achieve peace in the zone. Also, Ginger Omunsibe says beyond the simple measure the Deputy Speaker has adopted, the release of Nnamdi Kanu from detention will solve the problem even faster.
Agitations exist in the hearts of many. How can you say there is peace when many are still talking about civil war and the need to heal post-civil war? How can you say there is peace when there is the promise for reconciliation, for rehabilitation, for reconstruction of the Southeast? And that did not happen 50 years after civil war. And that has been agitating so many people. We are saying we can achieve peace through non-kinetic approach.
And people sit at home on Mondays, and Monday is supposed to be the first working day of the week. And when you sit at home, you don't do anything on Monday. Today in Abia, in Aba, students go to school on Saturdays. One of the major problems causing insecurity in the southeast is the detention of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. A political solution should be used to release our brother.
Today, what we are having here is one of the pillars of peace in Southeast, which has to do with sports and entertainment. We are using sports and entertainment, among other key pillars, as a credible tool to achieve our goal.
You're watching News Central now. We go on our short break. We'll be back in a bit. Many thanks for staying with us. Nigerians are holding on to cash at an unprecedented rate, with a staggering 94% of the currency outside the banking system. The Central Bank of Nigeria stated this in its March 2024 Money and Statistics data. The figures paint a concerning picture of declining trust in the banking system and potential risks to the nation's economic growth. According to the data on the CBN website, the amount of fiscal money in circulation has skyrocketed compared to the previous year. In January 2024, it stood at 3.65 trillion naira, more than double the 1.39 trillion naira recorded in January 2023. This trend continued throughout the quarter, with March 2024 reaching 3.84 trillion naira, a 130% increase from the previous year. To discuss this further with us, I am being joined by an economist, Akin Fatunke. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Lekon, to be with News Central TV. Thank you. Good evening, Nigerians.
So we're coming from this angle. Now, the ex-CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, launched the Naira redesign and cashless policy, but it seemed to have failed. Was it due to poor implementation, or, as some people have supposed, that the current CBN team actually discontinued that particular policy, and that was why it failed? What do you think, or what do you make of these postulations?
It didn't seem to have failed. It was a fiasco, and the jury is out. Even though you may say that it might be sub judice to make final pronouncements, but the effect is there for everybody to see. The 2023 cashless policy was poorly implemented, and the horizon, the tar for it, ranged from, say, you wanted to go cashless at a time when you knew that penetration in the hinterland was just not it. Deposit money banks didn't have enough branches elsewhere. Of course, we got in POS, which again did not have enough penetration. And then we went into the hula baloo of Mr. President approve, did not approve. The court had to make pronouncements. Yes, we had within the enabling CDN Act for you to do what you did. Did you have a standing board, a functional board? By and large, the effect of it, we all saw that it exhibited our corruptive and corruption tendencies, and the central bank was anything but a regulator. We even had the chief samurai of central bank, the Emefiele of that time, for the very first time in the history of central bank governors, seeking to be the president of the country, and everywhere went mute. So it was poorly implemented, a good policy, but terribly poorly implemented,
evidently,
on the throes of politics.
Well, evidently, now we see that 94% of the currency is outside the banking system, which means it's in the hands of individuals and institutions. So what do you make of this? What does this tell you when we have that huge amount of physical cash in circulation?
It tells me, certainly if you look at January, it was 90%, February was 92%, and like you rightly, Lekon, that was spot on, 94% in March. Basically, there was an initial fear that the old currency would cease to be legal tender until the CBN then came in, did not engender trusts. Many people died, many businesses collapsed, and you know that. And then, unfortunately, zoom to about now, I still hear, and I still experience it myself, that you go to the banks and they will tell you they don't have enough cash. Why that should be? I mean, are we still fighting the MI, money in circulation? Is it yielding any kind of fruits? What this tells me is that the storage will have to continue. People don't want to go back to the kind of pain that they went through. There's also the fear that the government policies, we don't know what direction this is getting. This is going to go. We don't know if we are going to be slammed with another shock and run policy.
Okay.
And the central bank governor said what is really lacking is trust in the banking system to help us keep our cash.
So now, if this persists, what are the potential risks that are there to the nation's economic growth?
Illiquidity will continue, right? Driven by the economic uncertainties that we have, which it's already been triggered now, the liquidity crunch that we are having. And then there's a risk to the natural financial stability of the country. Right now, the CBN is gasping and still gasping, even within the monetary policy, to try and bring down and tame inflation and exchange rates. Development, of course, is going to be stalled, and so money that is outside the system might find easily their ways to the hands of enemies of the country. I'm talking of the terrorists. I hear the terrorists are also trying to do cashless, but sometimes they expect it to bring herds and herds of cash. And politics that is going to be off-season, we again begin to see situations where politics is not devoid of money.
Okay.
All these continue to be instability cue for the Nigerian economy to reach its natural potential.
So at this time, what do you think the CBN should do to mop up this cash? Because we know that with the cashless policy, we had issues with the Naira. At some point, people were paying a lot of money to, have just a bit of that cash in hand. Now, at this point, we have excess in circulation. We need to have a bit of equilibrium within the system. So how do you think the CBN should go around now about mopping up the cash?
You should continue to be persuasion. You should continue to do things that will engender trusts. In 2023 or thereabouts, the CBN governor blew the whistle and said that the deposit money banks and the POS operators are working in cahoots to try and not make sure that we have enough money in the cash till. Yes, we went to the banks and we couldn't see money to collect. And of course, the CBN also now instituted that when you have large deposits, took away a transaction cost out of it, So I think the CBN needs to hammer more on that, trace the money, and then punish those we find, because we eventually find some people that are still recalcitrant, and then of course give incentives for people to bring in the cash. But at the end of the day, beyond the CBN, I think the physical also needs to engender the kind of trust that we expect. Unfortunately, we are still not seeing that 100%. Fuel queues are still there. We don't still have enough. Food inflation is still very high. I think we need to look at all those critically and bring in what we call TRSUT, trusts.
Well noted, I must say. Akin Fatunke, renowned economist, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much, Lekon, and it can get better, we know.
Hopefully, it will. Moving on now, Nigeria's federal government has warned non-performing centers of excellence under the sponsorship of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund that it will suspend their funding support. Nigeria's Minister of Education made this known in the nation's capital, Abuja, while receiving a report of the assessment and review of the centers under the Fund and Skills Development Special Intervention. The minister opposed the submission of the report, which recommended that all non-performing centers of excellence should be given a 6-month grace period to help them refocus on achieving their core mandates.
This country and any other country actually makes progress through scholarly researches and intellectual activities of its scholars. So it was well intended for the TED Fund to support this activity in all the universities of Nigeria that so deserve this. So we will look at this carefully and see to it that only centers that justify the name will continue to receive funding. And I've heard the chairman's more or less of an appeal in the recommendation about moratorium for those that are not doing well and that sort of thing. I'm not too sure I personally would be inclined to any moratorium.
You can hear right from the chair of that committee their assessment, and that is what will be implemented. We will ensure that those centers of excellence meet the objectives for which they were established and to provide the necessary review of the operations, and that is what will guide the intervention.
Now, a 17-year-old Kanuri child, Musa Zana Mustafa, has developed an artificial intelligence platform dedicated to preserving the rich cultural heritage of the Kanuri people and historical Kanem-Borno Empire. Kanuri is the dominant ethnic nationality in Borno State, northeast Nigeria. New Central's Umar Karawa tells us more in this report.
One of the longest-standing kingdoms across the globe, the Kanem-Borno, with its rich cultural heritage. Sustaining this is what this young Musa Zanna Mustafa is working on. Mustafa's initiative aims to ensure that the invaluable heritage of his community remains accessible to future generations in the digital age.
There is an artificial intelligence Kanuri Empire, which can help in the preservation of Kanuri language. Also, there is Land Kanuri Bot, which is another artificial intelligence. It teaches a user Kanuri language.
The young born from Burma developed the platform called Kanem Empire, which helps users to access information about the rich heritage of the Kanuris and also learn the language.
I was just 4 when I lost my mother. I went to my father. He always used to work with his computer. I was inspired by the work he does, and that's how I started. He trained me on digital skills, artificial intelligence, among others.
The young inventor showed me how the technology works, highlighting how he programmed the platform to provide information and answer questions about the Kanem-Borno Empire. Although the Kanuri artificial intelligence platforms are not yet popular, amazement is the reaction of the Executive Secretary of Borno State Information and Communication Technology Development Agency, among others in the state.
The boy has done something great to the preservation of history and culture of Kanuri, which is fast degrading because of absence of this kind of a thing. But I've seen his application, which is very, very excellent.
I believe that all the royal family will be proud to see these kind of things. And then this will actually teach us, and some of us that don't know about the history will also learn from this.
A boy like this, at his teenage age, doing something like this, if he gets support from some responsible leaders, so when he grew up, he can do better than what he did now.
Through interactive lessons and personalized feedback, learners worldwide can now embark on a journey to master the intricacies of the Kanuri language, fostering greater understanding and appreciation of linguistic diversity.
This boy deserves a lot, and I am sure that every stakeholder who is proud to see Kanuri heritage is being promoted at the digital level, and as well to make sure that a lot of people have access to understand the Kanuri language and what it is about the history. that we have. So he will make sure that he reward that boy with a huge reward.
The boy you are talking about, we are just hearing it for the first time, and I want to believe in the next 1 week, you will see when we, get his detail, you will see how the government will support him.
The only aspiration of Musa Zanna Mustafa and his family is for the young talented boy to further his studies.
I was very happy when I checked my JAM result and I scored beyond what it has been, the cut-off mark. Unfortunately, I was not offered admission. I was very angry, and I need more support to further my education.
He got 225 points in his JAM with 9 credit, yet the university didn't give him admission. I'm not happy, so I'll be very grateful if the government would find admission for him and scholarship for him to study, particularly in either MIT or Harvard University. I know he has the capability to do that.
A journey of 1,000 miles, they say, begins with a step. But most importantly, with adequate support, a journey as this might just be a wonder that will be written in the books of history. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Well, it's a fantastic and ingenious way to preserve a culture. Fantastic. Coming up on the news. U.S. blames Rwanda M23 rebels for DR Congo camp bombing. Details of this will come your way shortly. You stay with us. Many thanks for being there. The news continues in Central Africa, where the U.S. has blamed the Rwandan army and M23 rebel group for the deadly bombing of a displacement camp in the Democratic Republic of Congo. At least 9 people, including 7 children, were killed in a strike on the Mugunga camp in the eastern city of Goma on Friday. The Congolese army and M23 blamed each other for the attack. Rwanda, which borders DR Congo, is widely accused of backing the rebel group, which it denies. The U.S. State Department said Friday's attack came from positions held by the Rwanda Defense Force and the M23 group. The latest strike comes days after M23 fighters claimed they had seized the town of Rubaya, an area which is at the heart of mining coltan used for making mobile phones and batteries for electric vehicles. And now in North Africa, hundreds of Tunisians rallied on Saturday in the town of El Amra to protest makeshift camps for migrants, primarily from sub-Saharan African countries. The demonstration in the small town in central Tunisia follows recent crackdowns by authorities on similar encampments in the capital, Tunis, and other areas, often after complaints from residents. The protesters called for the departure of migrants and the quick eviction of the thousands estimated to be staying there. El Amra is a town located about 40 kilometers north of Sfax, a key departure point for Europe-bound sea journeys from where migrants had been forcibly removed late last year. We now bring you business stories from our business desk.
Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's private sector credit has sharply declined by approximately 9.65 trillion naira from February to March 2024, highlighting the Central Bank of Nigeria's hawkish stance to curb inflation and stabilize the economy. Credit to the private sector dropped by 12% month-on-month from 80.86 trillion naira in February to 71.21 trillion naira in March 2024, following a period of robust growth. This reduction aligns with the CBN's heightened monetary policies, a departure from the previous expansive credit flows under former Governor Godwin Emefiele. Similarly, government credit also plummeted by 42% from 33.93 trillion naira in February to 19.59 trillion naira in March 2024, reflecting a 29% decrease from 2023. The CBN's recent directive to reduce the loan-to-deposit ratio (LDR) to 50% underscores its shift towards a more contractionary monetary approach. The global concrete and cement market is projected to grow by $469.01 billion from 2023 to 2027, with a compound annual growth rate CAGR exceeding 7.1%, driven by the construction boom, especially in urban areas. This is according to Technaview Market Research Report. Demand for materials like concrete pipes, paving blocks, and ready-mix concrete is rising due to planned skyscrapers and high-rise buildings. Similarly, rapid hardening cement and low-heat cement are gaining traction, while hydrophobic and colored cement cater to diverse needs. According to the report, despite opportunities, the market faces challenges such as fluctuating raw material costs and regulatory issues. However, sustainable practices and digitalization are emerging as key drivers promoting efficiency and reducing environmental impact. Finally, European cocoa importers have been accused of breaking EU laws by selling beans from deforested African land while mislabeling their origins. This was contained in a report which revealed that cocoa merchants are contributing to tree felling in Liberia but labeling the beans as from Côte d'Ivoire. Despite efforts to promote sustainable agriculture, cutting down trees for cocoa farming violates EU environmental and business laws. To address this, the EU has been including conservation clauses in trade agreements. The report by Ivorian NGO IDEF calls for EU and African governments to implement cocoa certification schemes to prevent the illegal exploitation of African farmers. It criticizes the flawed traceability mechanisms used by companies and urges the adoption of a transparent national traceability system in Côte d'Ivoire. And that's our offering on the business news at this time. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.
Up next is sports news.
In sport, following 3 days of intense action, Team Lagos, Team Ogun, and Team Oyo have qualified for the final of the 2024 Wheelchair Basketball National League, which will take place at the Moshood Abiola Stadium in Abuja between May 19th to 22nd. A total number of 6 teams comprising Abia, Delta, Imo, Lagos, Ogun, and Oyo states participated at the Atlantic Conference Wheelchair Basketball National League, which ended on Friday. President of the Nigeria Wheelchair Basketball Federation, Sheyi Johnson, disclosed to newsmen in Asaba that the Atlantic Conference lived up to expectations with the performances of the players. Team Kano, Team Kwara, Team Lagos, Team Ogun, and Team Oyo will slug it out in the final of the 2024 Wheelchair Basketball National League in Abuja.
You can see the kind of amazement found with people that have never seen them play. The one thing I'm taking back home after this Atlantic Conference is they show people that there's a lot of ability in disability. In the word of the Director of Finance of Delta State Sport Commission, seeing them for the first time play, he said, wow, I will never and ever miss this again. So to me, it has been wonderful.
Away from there now to football, where the organizer of the Under-17 WAFL B competition has released the official fixtures of the championship. 7 countries, including Nigeria's Golden Eaglet, will take part in the competition that is slated to be held in Cape Coast, Ghana. The official fixtures will see hosts Ghana face Côte d'Ivoire in the opening game on the 15th of May. Defending champions, Nigeria will tackle Burkina Faso in the opening group game of the Group B on the 16th of May before Niger face Togo later in the day. Golden Eaglets will play Niger on the 19th of May in the second group game before playing Togo in the final group match 3 days later. The finalists will represent the region in the Under-17 African Cup of Nations, which will serve as the qualifiers for the FIFA Under-17 World Cup. Still talking football, Ipswich Town soared back into the Premier League for the first time since 2002 by cruising to a victory over relegated Huddersfield Town at an ecstatic Portman Road. Wales international Wes Burns gave them a first-half lead, which was doubled by Omari Hutchinson early in the second with a shot from the edge of the box. Only needing a point at kickoff to be sure of promotion, Kieran McKenna's side were focused on doing it in style, and much of the game was one-way traffic towards the Huddersfield goal. Ipswich finished the season on 96 points, just one fewer than champions Leicester, and become the first team since Southampton in the 2011-12 to go from the third tier to the first in successive seasons. And to wrap up sports update, we go to Formula One, where Red Bull's Max Verstappen took a controlled victory ahead of Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in the sprint race at the Miami Grand Prix. Verstappen was in control after fending off an attack from Leclerc at the first corner. Sergio Perez dropped behind RB's Daniel Ricciardo at the first corner after trying to pass Leclerc, but recovered to take third. Ricciardo drove an exceptional race, fighting at rearguard battle to hold off Carlos Sainz, Ferrari, and Oscar Piastri, McLaren, to take fourth. Lewis Hamilton was left frustrated by some over-aggressive defense from Hayes driver Kevin Magnussen in 8th place, taking the final point on the track. But Hamilton was penalized for speeding in the pit lane and given a drive-through penalty, which added 20 seconds to his race time and dropped him to 16th. The drivers return to the track later tonight for qualifying for the Grand Prix. And that wraps it up on Sports Update. I'm Favor Itwa.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we take a look at some of our major stories. Bandits have raided Katsina Community, killed 24 persons. U.S. has blamed Rwanda and M23 rebels for DR Congo camp bombing. We also told you that 2 nations have demanded eviction of migrant encampments. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. Well, you can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Omabanjo.